and it's their intrinsic
And then, this food basically robs.
sound feasible, sound like Everybody, thanks for watching. Now, a video like this should not be needed in this day and age. There's too much proof out there to, support the claims of this video, as I'm going to give you in this video. But the question of whether or not, African people were the first, or who was the first people in the Americas, is a no-brainer when you do the research. I mean, almost every serious scholar is in agreement that African people was in the Americas long before, anybody else. And the only reason why we have this debate, or the only reason why there is opposition, to the conclusion of this video, is because, you have racist people who do not understand that before slavery, African people had kingdoms and were free and, roamed the earth with no oppression. So the issues is, people see us in this one light as, coming from slavery, and, we don't see so many African accomplishments. A lot of them are stolen or hidden from the view in public. So it's hard for a lot of people to grasp the concept of civilizations in America before the American Revolution, before the colonists or what have you. But the facts show clearly that not only were Africans here in America, that we had beautiful civilizations, we had tribes, and we had agreements with each other and with the so-called Native Americans here as to how America was going to be, or this land, whatever they called it before it was called America. And, things were fine until, this place was colonized and everything like that. But it's a history that people need to understand, and it's facts that, people need to really get to really come to the conclusion of who was here first. Now, some may say that I'm being biased in my research on the subject, but we can look to other researchers like Harold S. Gladwin and the whole Gladwin thesis and see what he has to say. He puts Africans in the Americas over 70,000 years ago. He has the Africans coming out of Africa, during the migration when they started to spread throughout Europe and Asia, and eventually they found their way into the Americas. He has the diminutive blacks, or the diminutive Africans, being one of the first groups of people found in the Americas, and a diminutive basically means small. So they liken them to the pygmy tribes in Africa, but they have them here, over 75,000 years ago. And you have not just that, but you have other scholars who are not black, who are not African American, white and Asian and other races as well, putting Africans here first. You have National Geographic putting African people here over 20,000 years ago based on the remains of human skulls that were found here. So, I mean, whether or not we were here first, the question is completely solved. And, there's a lot of people who have this debate and people who get into this subject, and it's not even really something that we should be debating about. It's 100% been proved who was here first. You also have people like Professor Gladwin Rafinesques, who said way back in 1832 that Africans was here first based upon his long research that he did. And he came in and he basically talked about all the races, all the tribes of African people that he had found in the Americas long before Columbus, long before slavery, the people who are the true so-called Native Americans here. And he went on to say here in this writing, I'm going to read it, it's tough to make out. To many, this fact of old black nations in America will be new. Yet, it is an important feature of American history. I will here merely enumerate the black tribes of which I have found evident traces and remains in North and South America. And he goes on to name in detail about 15 or 16 tribes you can see that he has found in the Americas, remaining civilizations. This is stuff that they knew way back in the 1800s. And of course, as I said before, Columbus had documented the fact that Africans was coming over here trading and gold tip spears. It's too many documented cases of Africans already being here. Now, myself and others have been saying for years that we are the true Native Americans. Now, they have you thinking that, it was this mass slaughter, hundreds, millions of Indians was killed, Native Americans that look like this. But they don't talk about the black Native Americans who were truly here. So when they're talking about this, this whole genocide of Native Americans being killed and slaughtered, millions of Americans, Native Americans being killed, they are talking about us. They're talking about the black tribes, the African tribes that was here. It's just that simple. So the question is, you have to ask yourself, if it was millions of Native Americans here that they claim, and if the whole thing about the colonists was about slavery, if it was about, getting slaves, getting people to do your work here in the Americas, build stuff, who better that would know the Americas better than the Native Americans? So if this wasn't about black people, specifically African people, and there were millions of Native Americans here that they claim, why not just enslave the Native Americans that's here? So they would have you believe that they got millions of African people from Africa, that there were no African people here, that they went to Africa. All the slaves came from Africa. They brought them over here. And they say that to make it as if this is their land that they conquered and they won, instead of saying that this is our land, we were here first. And they would have you think that all Africans came from over Africa, they brought here to America. If that's the case and you needed slave labor to build your America, why not enslave the people who you claim owned America, who are the Native Americans, who know the land, who know the soil, who know everything? Why not just enslave them? They didn't enslave the Native Americans. Instead, deals were made. You have to remember that. Deals were made where they sold slaves to Native Americans. They sold guns to Native Americans. So, if this is your enemy, what are you doing selling them supplies, selling them guns, selling them slaves? And what really happened was a deal was made with the Native Americans who you believe, who they tell you are the Native Americans. And the deal was made to sell us out. And these Native Americans helped them capture us, enslave us, or kill us. And the deal was struck. And of course, we know later they was double crossed. Now, I want you to think about the IRS and, the thousands of people that they have audited, arrested. People have life sentences because they have avoided taxes for tax evasion. The IRS is serious when it comes to taxes. So why would they give these Native Americans tax exempt status for life? What would cause them to do that? That's hush money. It's for them to keep their mouths shut as to the true history and who the real Native Americans are. And it's unbelievable that they would get tax exempt status. Now, we know, as they keep saying, millions of Native Americans was wiped out. Tribes was, completely wiped out. So why? What's better? You wipe out the remaining Indians, you don't have to pay them nothing, or you have these land deals with these Native Americans. Why give them all this land and do all this when you can just wipe them out, when you already have wiped out millions of other Native Americans? This was the deal that was cut between these Native American tribes that was left and the government. It's just that simple. So how is it that we can have researchers from all over the world, not just in America, but from Asia, from Africa itself, from Europe? How can we have so many independent researchers and prominent researchers, do specials, do shows, put out so many books and put out so much information proving, showing 100% for certain that African people was here first, yet the government still gives these so-called Native Americans tax-exempt status. They give them tax-free status. They don't give us anything. We haven't got a dime for slavery or for the land that we lost, as a result of slavery and the war. Yet Native Americans, so-called Native Americans still get tax exempt status. So this is one of those questions that, I always get from white people. And it's a question that I think every white person should ask themselves. What is it about African people, about black people, that they have such a problem with? What is it about us that they do so much to oppress us? I mean, just look at the history. Look at everything we have been through as African people with slavery. Over 1,000 years under the Arabs, into the whole transatlantic slave trade and slavery here. Then we get free, and the lynchings and everything that has taken place since slavery up until today. We talk about the whole history of America itself. The history that we know, that they give us, that is recorded, and that independent researchers have recorded. When we look at it, throughout all of it, African people have been oppressed. Do you honestly believe that Africa would be the way that it is if it was a white continent? It's just that simple. No. So what is it? And this is the question that I get. I have people who ask me this question. What is it? Why does it seem like the powers that be want to keep you guys down? Now, when you have white people ask you this question, it tells me that they are waking up and are starting to see something is not right. Something is going on. When you look at the cover-ups that are being exposed, and so many people have started to do their own research, and they want to know, what the fuck is it? What's going on? That it seems like we, the powers that be are trying to completely wipe our history away and assume it in a lot of cases. Now, I get racist people who answer that question by saying, well, it's because you guys are savages. You kill each other. You sell drugs to each other. You rap about killing each other and everything like that. It's your music. It's your culture. But what about in the 20s? What about in the 50s and the 60s? What about the whole civil rights movement when we were marching for peace, when we were still getting beat down by white cops and still saying, we still want to stand with our white brothers arm in arm in unity and peace, while our dogs were sicked on us, while we was getting water hose blasted at us, we still sat there. Dr. King still marched people in a peaceful protest. Way before hip hop music, before the drug epidemic, and before, the so-called black culture, this whole hip hop culture, you had African people, you had black people try to do things correctly. Black Wall Street doing things correctly. And still, this government and the people have met us with nothing but hate in their hearts, malice, deception, deceit. And we still marched on. What about those times? What about then? You can't say, we got treated unfairly because we were killing each other and selling drugs. That didn't exist back then. It wasn't going on. So what is it? I mean, you have to look at this stuff. Any kind of rational white person, and I have talked to quite a few who are waking up and seeing it, will ask themselves, this is not right. Something is wrong. Look at the constant theft of African history. I mean, when you take a look at a lot of things, you can see that it's clearly African. It has been stolen, and it's being misrepresented by the powers that be. Yet they want to deny African people of the ownership of this country. Not just that, of us even being legitimate citizens here. Go back to Africa. We hear that a lot when we have a problem, as if we were not here way before them or someone was here before them. It's crazy. It's unbelievable. We are told to leave the very country that was taken from us, yet the American flag comes from Africa. You can go and look in Kemet and see where they stole it from. The crest, the United States of America crest, the seal of America, both of them come from Africa, stolen from Kemet. Look at it and see for yourself where they got it from. This is from Africa, from black people. But we are denied ownership of this country. We are denied, fair treatment, equal protection under the law in a country that is basically ours. Everything about it has been stolen. Look at England. Look at the wigs they wear. It's clearly the ancient Egyptian headdress. So not just in America and England itself, we can see this whole thing, this whole so-called Illuminati, Freemason ownership of America, this whole thing that people want to ignore. I mean, look on the back of the fucking dollar. You look at the crest that has the pyramid. You put a damn star over it, spells out Mason. When you go and look at our nation's capital, when you look at Washington, D.C. itself, the whole layout, the Masonic layout, is a pyramid at the top. The capstone is a Masonic temple. What's going on? And no one wants to point this stuff out and see that this stuff clearly is starting to trace back to ancient Kemet. There's no way around it. Look at what the people follow. Look at the constant thievery. Look at the Freemasons here. Look at the whole situation that they have set up and how it resembles the craft of Amun-Ra, the real Masons, the real brothers of the craft, stolen clearly from Kemet. Why are they taking our likeness? Why are they taking our accomplishments and trying to pass them off as white? I mean, it's a legitimate question. Look at all the noses that has been chiseled off. Why? What is it? What's going on? It's frustrating that people don't want to recognize this stuff as clearly in their face. You can see it clear as day. Something is up. So what is it? And this is what I get into in my Saturn Satan series, and what I'm getting into in the whole, preparing for the Metu Neter. All that stuff is what I'm trying to convey to people. What's going on? What is this whole thing between us? And I get a lot of people who always ask this question, but you have to start seeing and looking at stuff, and you can see the constant thievery, the theft of these Europeans from African people, the stuff that has been stolen. I mean, I would be embarrassed as a white man to look and see the theft of African people. I mean, it's a joke. As much as we are talked about and put down, and then you look over and see how much shit they copying and stealing from us. Come on. I mean, they look like fools. I would be embarrassed to see them with this headdress on their head, supposedly representing the court of the country. It's clearly stolen from him. Clearly stolen from Egypt, and we get no credit for it. It's just that simple. And for any person who is not clear that the ancient Egyptians were black, I mean, come on. Yes, you had during the rule of the Ptolemies. We're talking about the 4th century BCE, where you had white Greeks on the throne in ancient Kemet, conquered their way onto the throne after conquering the Persians, who conquered their way onto the throne before then. But we know before that, we have nothing but African black Egyptians there. We're talking about for what ancient Egypt is known for, not necessarily the pyramids and everything like that, but for the culture, for what they brought back, those Egyptians that we talk about, the Tuts and, the Atmosis and the Kamos and the Tutankhamons and everybody like that, and Hatshepsut and, everybody who we speak about, who we look to as far as ancient Kemet. We're talking about the culture that they began to bring back and teach to people like Thales and to Herodotus, who attest to the fact that the ancient Egyptians were good people, that they were, powerful people. They could build ships, that they were black people. And the question you got to ask yourself is, well, wait a minute. If ancient Egypt was white when the Persians came and conquered it, who was those white people? Explain to me how you have white civilization in ancient Egypt during that time period who still remain white. Where did they come from? How did they get there? How is that possible? Surrounded by all these African people, yet they remain white in Kemet. It don't even make sense. It don't fit. So people are delusional when they come kick their ancient Kemet was white, or, well, it wasn't black necessarily. We come in all shades, man. We can be dark skin, which they identify themselves as being dark. Likened to the Ethiopians. They did the whole, when you go look into the tomb of Ramses III, the temple of Seti I, they describe themselves as black, dark-skinned Africans. And you can see the depictions. So, it's not even, look at the I have a statue, over my shoulder right here, dark skin, came from Africa. When you go there and you can see for yourself, it's no debate. And there are still black Africans in Kemet to this day that they don't want to get into and talk about. Everybody thinks it's just full of Arabs, and it's not. You still have black Africans there. How far back they go, I do not know. But they're there, still there to this day, seeing it with my own eyes. So when I go take this trip next year back to Kemet, I'll show you. And, we're gonna kill that whole debate for anybody who doesn't want to accept the fact, because I'm gonna show it and make it clear what Kemet was, and I'll put the damn Egyptologists on camera, and I'll put the Arab tour guides, and they'll tell you, because they told me myself when I went there. Arab tour guide told me, oh well, yeah, these are your people. You know what I'm saying? You know, we are invaders. This is coming from an Arab who said this. We are invaders, you know, conquerors. This is your people land. Come on. So to anybody who don't want to accept that fact, it's a proven fact already. Get over it. Yes, the Ptolemies conquered. You had white Egyptians. You know, does that entitle you to go ahead and rep ancient Kemet and you know, wear their headdresses and get all the tattoos and everything like that? No, because you conquered yourself onto the throne. If you want to give Kemet the credit, Africans the credit, black people, and say, yeah, well, Kemet is black, I just represent Kemet, I know it's African people, I don't care what you do. But you have people who rep Kemet, white people who rep in Kemet and go in there and all into Kemet, who don't want to give the glory to ancient Kemet as being black African people. It shouldn't matter, but it matters now when we don't have really anything to hold on to and everything is being stripped away from us, that we have to hold on to that. We have to, because that's where everything stemmed from. So we need to hold on to that. We have to keep that black. We can't give that away. It's just that simple. When they got movies coming out, taking away who we are, our leaders, the accomplishments of African people, we got to hold on to that. We can't just be cool with that and say, well, you know, it's white when it's not. We can't do that. We got to keep that. Now, when you look at these pictures of African people, you know, we take a look at them, and the first thing that probably pop into your head is, you know, African tribes in Africa. But this is not in Africa. This is in America. This is the Ouachita Nation. These are the mound builders in America that they don't speak about, who basically owned the Louisiana territories until 1803, when the Louisiana Purchase happened. And France basically sold over 800,000 square miles of land that was not theirs. They sold for about, I believe it was 15 million. They sold this land that belonged to us, African people. We sitting around, we talking about these Indians who we know exist, these nations, these tribes that we know were here in America. I mean, it's a bunch of them. That list that Professor Constantine gave, and he listed in the 1800s. They knew years ago, hundreds of years ago, we were here first. And we look at researchers pull up these findings and say, well, wait a minute, you have the Ouachita Nation who was here, the mound builders who was here in America long before the French was here. So how can the French sell over 800,000 square miles of land that's not theirs, that belong to these people? And nothing is done. The tribes are not found. No money is given back to the people who own this land. We're talking about a large chunk of America taken away and sold. And it didn't belong to the French at all, it belonged to us. And that's proven factual stuff. But we can't go to Congress and lobby for that back, or lobby for money, or try to get something done, because nothing will happen. It's shut up, get over it. Everybody else get reparations and get made whole again, but us. Why? And this is what we have to keep going back to, is the why. Because I want people to really start to think about it and look at this shit and understand what the fuck, what's going on, that we can't get nothing, that they keep their foot on our neck 24/7 all the way to this day. And we keep seeing people getting killed in the street, and you look at the history, yet they steal from us. Wow, what is going on? And it's something that, you know, you have a lot of people, when you start reading books, and I mean, I guess like some researchers try to tiptoe around it, and because they ask the question, a lot of books that I read from independent researchers, white researchers, who want to know why. It seems as if the cover-ups are massive when it comes to African people. Not just the fact that we was here first, but then when you start getting to the accomplishments, even up until slavery, when we start talking about the inventions that they was talking about in the whole movie that they did, Colors, the Hidden Colors series, when he was talking about the inventions that were stolen from African people. I mean, it takes a lot to cover this shit up, and they've been covering it up for a long time. And then you have other people who put out books talking about the stuff, who bring it back, who keep it going. As they always say, if you want to keep something from people, not just black people, you put it in books. seriously, because not everybody is reading. If white people was reading more than us, then they would know this shit. Or they're not reading the correct books, which is the problem. And that's the problem. That's the issue. It's the whole ego of this white supremacist system. And, you know, white people buy into this whole white power thing and this whole, this whole notion of course, we are the dominant race and we was here first and everything like that they say is true. And they don't go and look into the facts. You know, when you start bringing up stuff like this to a lot of white people, it's conspiracy theorist stuff. It's just a theory. It's not proven. And a lot of them now are waking up in shock and awe that not only is this stuff true that we're talking about, but it has been talked about for over 100 years. It has been documented by people for hundreds of years who the real people here were, the accomplishments of African peoples, that we were kings and queens long before the damn name king and queen ever was thought of. That the whole notion came from us, and they started to see this. I put out a lot of videos. I can't even get into how many videos I have on YouTube, right? There's a lot. And I try to put this information out, and I guess people can see my message. It's not just one of, black power. And that's the first misconception I get from white people when they see, when I first started out, I was putting up blacks who seeks the facts, or African or original black power. And a lot of people was taking that the wrong way, as if I'm just some militant, angry black dude who mad about slavery. When the knowledge that I have, and I believe a lot of people are starting to see how much I know, black people as well, the knowledge that I have is what I'm putting out. And it's the truth. And that's all I offer. Plain and simple. 100% the truth, the facts. Either you accept them or you don't. But the truth will still remain regardless of what you think and how you feel. People think because they have emotions and negative feelings about something that it's going to change the truth. It's going to change history and the facts. That's not so. It's not going to change because you feel some type of way. A lot of people don't want to accept the fact that white people come from us, that all races come from us. They want us to separate each other as far as possible so we can have this war without any guilt in our heart. And my whole thing is, either way, I mean, even if it was a whole nother race of people, everybody was, and we all was different races. I mean, what the fuck we want to go to war for? For what? For what? When there's so much land here that we don't have to die for. All we got to do is point to that little ass group of nerds over there, little ass group of people who running the whole thing, and say, yo, get them. That's all we got to do. But instead, they have been very, very smart in understanding how we think as people. They know you better than you know yourself because they created who you are, whether you accept it or not. They have been very good at manipulating us and putting us against each other, which is why we are, in a situation we are in. But knowledge can fix all of that, which is why I teach. I put the information out. I want people to understand what's going on. But this question, and I waited a while. I actually was supposed to do this video months ago, but I waited a while to do this because I wanted to get some videos out to not just help with what I'm saying here, but to get people to understand where I'm coming from. Because when you start getting into this whole topic of who was in the Americas first, it will quickly turn into a race issue. It will quickly turn into black and white. Now, don't get me wrong. It's hard not to go there when you're talking about this. But as I said, we can't point to every single white person or the white people of today for what happened in the past. We can only say that you are benefiting from what happened in the past. Acknowledge that and do what's right. Now, the whole Louisiana Purchase in 1803 was basically the beginning of the double cross to the Indians that basically double crossed us. Because contrary to popular belief, and when you go and read a lot of the books that Indians put out on this whole thing, the whole Black Indian books and stuff like that, they'll tell you that we had this truce between us because you had, and I'm gonna get into this later, exactly what the Native Americans are. But we had a truce. We had an agreement together. I mean, we was living here. Everything was good. But when you see people come here with guns and stuff that you've never seen before and start slaughtering people and enslaving people, survival of the fittest. They did what they had to do to survive. And I'm not condoning what they did. I'm just saying exactly what they did. They basically said, well, we can't beat them, join them. But these people double crossed us. But the Louisiana Purchase in 1803 was basically the beginning of their double cross. Because you had in, I believe it was 1887, Yet in 1887, you had the whole General Allotment Act that was passed. The General Allotment Act basically was the final blow to the Native Americans who were still here, who got double crossed, because you had them basically say, if you have 1,000 acres of land, guess what? We're only going to give you 160 acres per male per household of land. Because what you had was, you remember, you had the Native Americans who was living off the land. Then you have this whole industry coming up in the colonies, where you had the colonies building houses and building towns and stuff was nice. But then when you go start looking over there at the Native Americans and how they was living, it was kind of living still, primitive and tents, and, it was nasty and dirty according to the colonists. And, as I said before, of course, we know beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Who are you to tell me what is normal? I mean, we don't critique an animal and how they live in the wild. We don't expect lions to go build a hut and everything and go live in it and have dishes and all kinds of stuff like that. You would call it weird if they did so. So we don't call it weird that they live naturally in the wild. We got to stop accepting the definition of what is primitive from one group of people, because you can look at the way the Native Americans lived and say that's primitive. But by whose definition? By yours or by the Europeans, or what they believe is primitive. We can say the way they live was spiritual, and they live a spiritual lifestyle. But it was threatened with this whole act. So they had large amounts of land taken away from them so that the colonists could develop on them. And Native Americans in certain parts was pushed into certain areas, kind of sort of what they do to black people. And eventually a lot of them died out. They couldn't really sustain themselves having a little bit of land that they had. They couldn't live that way. They was used to having a lot of land. They was used to, working their cattle and growing their food, their vegetation a certain way. And when the land was taken, a lot of them was forced to try to basically modernize. So you had a lot of Native Americans coming into the towns and the cities to try to learn skills and get jobs and do stuff like that. And this is where you start seeing those old photographs of homeless Native Americans in towns and cities because they couldn't make it. They couldn't fit into that whole culture. I mean, you take a people that's spiritual people living in the wild and try to domesticate them or try to make them, like you when they're not supposed to be, then this is what happened. But we already know some other Indians were smart and they had a little skill and they made a lot of money off of their knowledge and, stuff that they knew. But I know a lot of people might say, look at this and say, well, I think you're wrong about the whole Native Americans double crossing other Native Americans. But listen, I mean, it's something you have to just seriously ask yourself and look at. And it's common sense. How? We see the movies, cowboys and Indians, millions of Native Americans slaughtered. So you have the colonists having the Native Americans as their enemy, right? How is it that if the Native Americans are their enemies, that they end up with guns, lots of guns, not just guns, but with slaves? So if they're your enemy, why would you sell them guns? How can you sell them guns? How can you give them slaves to help your enemy against you? Who are they going to shoot with those guns if the slaves are slaves? The only people who they can shoot is you. The only reason why you would sell them guns or give them slaves is if they are on your side. And that's common sense. Again, and people don't want to look at this. If you had millions of Native Americans slaughtered, yet your whole notion is to enslave people, to build, to use slave labor in the South. We know how much the South loves slaves. If it's not about black and white, what I keep hearing from white people, you're race baiting, you keep making it about race. No, I'm telling you the facts, the history. If it's not about black people and oppressing specifically black, African, why not enslave those millions of so-called Native Americans who you claim was here? Why not enslave them instead of wasting the time of bringing millions of Africans back and forth across the Atlantic, back and forth, between Haiti and, South America and everything like that, to get them to America? Why go through all that when you can clearly kill the primitive Native Americans because you claim you killed millions of them? Why not enslave them instead? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't fit. So by that logic, when you start looking at the facts, you can see clearly the people who they're talking about wasn't these Native Americans, but the African tribes who are documented and who are proven to have already been here. The reason why a lot of those tribes was wiped out was because they was black. It's just that simple. Most of them were enslaved. A lot of them was wiped out. A lot of them fought back and was killed. And, you know, people who debate this whole thing, who don't want to accept the truth and the facts, I mean, you can't argue with the proof. There's too much proof out there now. There's too many people who have proven this fact, and there's too much evidence and facts to support everything that I'm saying here. You know, you can ask Native American tribes themselves who are not black, who the true Native Americans are, the ones who they tell you are the true Native Americans, but still can be considered Native Americans, just not before us, because they were also here before Columbus and before the colonists, as I'm going to get into in a little bit. But you have to understand, we were here long before them. And the whole thing is, when you start getting into the information, and you're going to go back, and what you're going to find is this. This is basically, because I'm not even going to get too deep into this whole thing, because there's no reason to. It's no-brainer. It's common sense. Go read a book, pick up a book, and just Google this shit. And you can figure this whole thing out. I'm not even going to get too deep into it. But what you're going to find is this. You're going to find that, as I said, when you had the whole out of Africa thing happen, and of course we know, even if they don't want to accept the out of Africa theory, we know that Africans migrated out of Africa at some point. Let's just all agree on that. And when you had those Africans start migrating over to Asia and into Australia, you have the Aboriginal. And what you'll find is these Aborigines basically sailed from Australia to Africa, and then from Africa to the Americas, to South America. And we know this because right where they left off from, we find cave art of depictions, drawings of boats dating over, 50,000 years. We're also going to find that later, the ancient Egyptians, as Herodotus attests to as being seafaring people, we know that they were coming back and forth between the Americas, because when they found out of the mummies, they found plants and ingredients that can only be found in the Americas, in the stomachs. They talk about Ramses III when they found his body. They found like cocaine in his body and fruits and plants that can only be found in Central America, South America, found in his body and with his remains. And they found stuff that can only be found in America. So they know for a fact that the ancient Egyptians were going back and forth from the Americas to Egypt. And we know about the Egyptian artifacts found in the Grand Canyon and everything like that, as I'll get into in the Saturn Satan series. So, I mean, it's just so much proof everywhere. So now the $1 million question, and what a lot of people do not ask, is what race, what exactly were these so-called Native Americans? When you look at them, a lot of people say they look like Mexicans. But this goes back into the Aboriginal people coming from Australia. When they came over into South America, came up through South America into the Americas. So when we start coming into the Americas, we have basically later on, there was a blockage between Alaska, Canada, and Northern America. It was an ice blockage, and a lot of researchers talk about this and attest to this, that there was an ice blockage between Alaska, Canada, and Northern America that melted. And what you had was the Eskimos, or the people with the mongoloid skull shape, which is what we see in Asians. Asians have the mongoloid skull shape. Japanese, Chinese, Korean, what have you, mongoloid skull shape. You have these people start coming into the Americas, and they made it with the Aboriginal people coming from Australia. So this is where you get your Native American from. This is why they look like that. When you go look up the mongoloid skull shape, you will see that you have Eskimos, and you see the Native Americans fall within that mongoloid skull shape, proving the fact that this is what happened. You had the Eskimos mate with the Aboriginals, or the Africans from Australia, to give us the Native Americans who they talk about. But you still had pure Africans there, not just from the Aboriginal Australian, but from the Egyptians coming over and the Africans coming over to America. Now, Africans, we have all skull shapes. We have brachycephalic, dolichocephalic, mongoloid. And when they don't find either of these, when they find someone who doesn't have, distinct mongoloid skull or dolichocephalic or brachycephalic skull shape, then they say it's a negroid. Oh, well, it's a negroid skull. It's a negroid because, mongoloid has the rocking. Mongoloid, lays flat when you put the skull shape down. Dolichocephalic and brachycephalic have movement. And we know about the so-called negroid, distinctly African skull shape. We know we have a protruding mouth. If I turn to the side, you can see my mouth pokes out. And this is another way that when they trace lineage back, they can look and see. When you look at Haru M. Aket, the Sphinx, you see how the mouth, how it protrudes out, showing that true African, feature. When you couple that with the nose shape and the lips and everything like that, you get straight up African. It's 100% African, you can tell. And they call it negroid. But we have all skull shapes. We have all facial features. A lot of people don't want to accept that. We come in all different colors and shades. We are everything. Everything comes from us. I mean, people say, oh, well, how come, we don't have the same, we have different facial features from white people. When you look at the Africans from Ethiopia and Somalia, you can see clearly some of them have thin noses, they have thin lips. Not all of us have, big noses and huge lips. We come in different shapes, different sizes, different facial features, different skull shapes. You can't put us in one bracket and just say this is African when we have everything. Everything comes from us. Now, I understand why, white people get so patriotic about the thought of America, the whole notion of America, about people fighting for this country and, fighting wars and all the people who died and, everything about, what makes America America, fighting for the freedom of the people. I can understand how people can think that is noble, that has honor to it, that's some kind of good thing, that's something that's right and true. But all of you forget and just completely don't acknowledge the fact that millions of people died and were enslaved so you could be patriotic about a country that is not yours. So you could be happy and thankful and celebrate once a year, twice a year about a country that is not yours in front of the people who it actually belongs to, and then put them down in the meantime. I mean, this is what you are not accepting. And imagine somebody breaking into your home and killing your entire family, then enslaving you for about 20 years. They get rich off of your enslavement. They buy multiple houses all over. Then when you get free after those 20 years and you try to do something to get some kind of, to be made whole for what has happened to you and your family, to just try to get back on your feet, you are told no. You got to go out and get it yourself. But they do little slick shit so that you can't get to where they are at because they took your country, took your home, killed your family. You can't get to where they at. They got houses in abundance. When you ask for one, they say, no, go get your own. Then you have to sit around and watch them every year celebrate and get emotional and teary-eyed about your house that they took from you. Think about that. This is what we go through. We're not looking for the moon. We asking for what's right. That's all we ever ask for. What is right? Acknowledge who we are. That this is ours. Give us what's right. Now you can look at it from a point of conquest and say that, well, it's survival of the fittest. We took y'all shit. Get over it. Shut the fuck up. You can look at it from that standpoint and just say that. But that's not even being humane. You can't say that and then condemn what we do as people. You can't say, get over it. It's conquest. Shut the fuck up. And then condemn us when we go out here and sell drugs and kill each other and everything like that, even though it's wrong as well. I mean, you can't say that and then go save the animals and protest against this and protest against that. It's hypocritical. It's hypocritical. So all the stuff that, you see people doing demonstrations and fighting and marching over stuff that it's not killing people, that really makes no sense. But we can't get the same kind of support for, African people. I'm not talking about the whole Black Lives Matter movement and people that's marching for us, the white people that's marching. It's deeper than that. Because as I said, the whole Black Lives Matter shit is a scam to me. I think it's just something created to mislead black people and lead us into the wrong direction and make us look worse than we already look. Them going out and setting fires and rioting and destroying shit is not a good look for black people. So I honestly think that shit is a setup. I'm with the whole slogan, Black Lives Matter. I understand what it means. It's deceptive for a reason. And I think it's deceptive to cause controversy. But it's right. And it's controversial. And it's supposed to cause controversy. But Black Lives Matter. And that's all it's saying. It's saying, hey, we know all lives matter. But this is not what we're seeing, because we're not seeing everybody get killed. I get that. I get all that. But we're not getting the support where it really counts. So when you have black people step up and start talking about reparations and getting made whole and, things that should be done for us because we are still feeling the effects of slavery and because we had so much taken from us and we don't get that support. You get white people that say, hell no, because they feel like if that happens, we are going to somehow surpass them or they're going to lose power here in America when we're not here to gain power. We have never tried to gain power and control over the entire planet. You won't find that in our history. You will only find us sharing and doing things the correct way based off of nature, not based off material. I mean, when you go and you start doing the research and you look at everything, especially when you start seeing the fact that we had kingdoms in Africa, that we had civilizations here in America before they was conquered. We talk, even when you go and just look in the 16th century, when you look at the whole Songhai Empire that had the legal structure and colleges and everything like that before they was conquered and enslaved. The Mali dynasty, as I said before, where were the Arab Muslims when these civilizations were conquered? Why didn't they come to their aid and help them fight off the Europeans and keep them from being enslaved? Where were they? So this is why I always talk against religion, because no religion has ever saved us. If you believe it did, you are delusional. Where were these people? We've never been saved by a religion. We have only been enslaved under them. That's a fact. So, when you look at this stuff and you start looking at everything and seeing that we had all this history, it reminds me of Lord of the Rings. And I say that because when you look at the whole Lord of the Rings series and you look at, the Shire where the hobbits live, or Minas Tirith, and it's as if, Sauron won. Sauron won. The orcs conquered Minas Tirith, enslaved everybody, killed all the hobbits in the Shire and just basically took over. And everybody fucking orcs right now, not realizing it. That land before the orcs took over belonged to the hobbits and to, the elves or the dwarves or what have you. That's how I see it when I start reading about that history or our history. The bad guy has won. And now it's so long ago that we don't see, what happened and who really owned what. Everybody is just content with the conquest. We are a conquered people in a land that belongs to us. And everything that we have is copied and stolen and passed off as our conquerors' accomplishments. So when I say to white people to look at the theft of what we had and start paying attention to everything. I mean, even when you look at our culture today, even though it's a hip hop culture and it was basically given to us, we made it what it is. We took it to that level because we thought it was us. We embraced it and we made all kinds of cool shit out of it. And it's still copied to this day, from the hairstyle to the clothes, to the way white people walk and talk, to talk shows. I mean, just look at talk shows in the 90s and the early 80s and look at them today. They sound like us, the lingo. We made them who they are. As I said before desegregation, white people was Happy Days. The coolest white dude was the Fonz, Henry fucking Winkler. I mean, come on. That was y'all coolest guy. Until integration happened and y'all start mixing with us and seeing how cool we was and how we are. It's something about us when we put out something, it connects. Not just here in America, but you can see it in Africa as well. They dancing in the street and almost living that hip hop culture a little bit. You know, you have the whole Afro beats going on in Europe, and the music is banging, and they respect women in their music. They have good hip hop music, but it's called Afro beats, and it's not getting the support it should get. And y'all not hearing it over here because I barely hear it here, and people don't know about these songs. But when I was in Sweden, thinking that they listened to Jay-Z and Beyonce and all that, they listen to Afro beats. Go to Europe, go to Germany and stuff like that. You're not going to find American music as much. You're not going to find hip hop as much as you think. It's there, but what dominates the radio, what dominates these systems in these European countries is Afro beats. I'm telling you from experience. These guys is good, and the music is good, and it's music that you can dance to, and it's respectful, good music. It's clean music. And it's talking about something. Even the black Swedish rappers who got skills in Sweden, it's sick. They got skills and they rapping in this hip hop, but it's respectable, good music, and it's proof that we can do this. So, you know, when you look at everything, you can see our culture being mimicked, being copied. I mean, they even going as far as going into ancient Egypt and using a solution to remove the black skin from the hieroglyphics. I mean, you can see it clearly everywhere you turn, the theft of African culture and even, you know, our hip hop culture that we have here in America. They're stealing it. They're copying it. They're making money off of it more than us. It's just that simple. Somebody was just putting out a video about how the highest rated African American TV shows, the actors are getting paid less than white actors. How you have Empire, which I completely hate and don't think we should watch. You have the actors and they're getting paid less, having the highest rated TV show, getting paid less than white actors. I mean, I don't care about that. They sellouts anyway. They should get paid less. But still, it's just another, you know, white supremacist move that we see in America, and it's everywhere. But I want people to look back and understand and ask the question to themselves, why? What is it? What is it about African people that it seems like they copy? They must, for some reason, copy, and in the meantime, destroy the true people who it belongs to. And this is what we are seeing, and we are seeing them copy us, and we are seeing everything. It's not like we sitting back and making this shit up. I mean, it's right in your face. You know, for thousands of years, when you start looking back at the history of Europeans, you don't see nothing but conquest. This is all you see. You see them basically commit genocide against people, destroy and conquer and move on. This is what you see. Now, as a European, as a white person, you have to look at this and understand what it is and decide to either embrace that and say that you agree with that and be a part of it, and just say, well, it's just conquest and we was just taking what, you know, doing what we felt we needed to do and what have you, or look at it from a moral standpoint of right and wrong and say that, you know, I don't agree with this stuff and, you know, it's wrong. And if you do that, matter of fact, you don't even really have to do that because that shit don't matter. That shit happened a long time ago, but it's, you know, your racist legacy. It's just that simple. You can agree with it or disagree with it. So you don't even have to look at that. That shit happened. It's over with. Look at what's taking place today and what it led up to, because this is where you can actually make a difference at, and you can see, you know, what's going on. It's leading to something, and I'm not sure, you know, Europeans are ready to accept what it's leading to. They think it's going to benefit them, but you can see clearly that it's not going to benefit you. It's benefiting a group. You're just getting the benefit of it because you happen to be within that race, and they're using that to deceive you. And, you know, I think a lot of people agree with that, that's European, because I get the messages as well. And it's something you got to accept. But the whole question and the notion about who is here in the Americas, come on, we're not even really going to get into it. I have had people request me to do a video on it, and this is why I made this video. But I want you to just not even really think about it, because it's not even hard to find the information on it. And don't feed into what people are saying when it comes to that subject. I mean, it's just common sense. I laugh at it like, you serious? when we have all this proof, when we have the bodies and the remains, when we have all the documentation to prove we was here. Don't even feed into somebody saying that we wasn't, because you're talking to an angry person who don't want to accept facts. And as I said, I can tell you 1 + 1 is 2, but you have to accept that. You have to accept that it's 2. You might not want to accept it. You can say, no, it's not 2 to me. It's 9 to me. I don't care what you say. 1 + 1 is 9. It's up to them to accept the truth or not. You don't have to push it on nobody or what have you. The truth is going to be the truth. When they're ready to accept it, it's going to be right there for them. If they want to live in a lie, let them live in a lie. It's just that simple. But, I wanted to do this video, get this information out there, and just get it, a video of me actually talking about this and get it out so people can understand, the information that I have come to find in this subject, that it's a no-brainer. We were here before anybody. It's common sense. But it's not even about that. What's the deeper part to this whole thing is the theft of our accomplishments. And that's what people need to look at and understand, why we have not yet been given our just due. And, you get people who say, well, we got Obama. Obama's the leader. Obama. And these people don't realize that a president doesn't run anything. So Obama is supposedly our consolation prize or what have you, when he has done nothing for, black people here in America since he has become president. He hasn't taken up any of our needs or helped us with any of these problems that we are facing with the police. So how can we have an African-American president and being killed by cops? I think it's embarrassing. So no, whatever. But wanted to do this video, and I want to thank everybody who purchased the Metu DVD or who downloaded the video. That's a deep series. I got a lot of good positive reviews about it. I know part 2 is going to really get into it much deeper, but that first one was pretty deep, and a lot more to come on that and the Saturn and Satan series. And I got some more videos I'm gonna put on YouTube to connect everything. But I want to thank you guys for watching and taking the time to watch the video, and I'll see you guys next video.